Now, for many of us here in the Tucson area, we remember about 20 years ago or so, where the Catalina suffered a devastating fire. Is that about the right time frame for it to happen again?
Historically, they were low severity surface fires with low flame lengths and not really tree killing fires the way we're seeing now. But because of the changes in climate over the last 100 years, as well as the accumulation of fuels from the absence of fire, when a fire does happen, we get a big one. And you're absolutely right. Those fires in 2002 and 3, anybody who's driven up the Mount Lemmon road since then, a lot of what you're seeing is the legacy of those fires with forest converted into shrubland.
How firefighters fight fires has also evolved over the years. The prescribed burns, control burns, all those things can be positive and negative, and they're quite controversial. From what you've studied, what is the role or the reason for some of those tactics?
Right. So the basic principle in fighting fire is what's called the fire triangle, the things you need in order for a fire to actually initiate and spread. You need some kind of ignition, lightning, or a match. You need oxygen and you need fuel. And basically, all firefighting revolves around trying to deprive a burning fire of one of those three elements. And most often, what they're dealing with is fuel. They're trying to manage fuels. They cut a fire break so that the fire comes up to an area where there's simply not enough fuel for it to burn. The fire will drop down to the ground and then they can extinguish it. But the things you do before a fire, like thinning or prescribed burning, likewise are meant to reduce the mass, that is the total amount of energy basically stored on the landscape. And it's worth saying that the Forest Service and the Park Service and all of our public agencies, they would love to be doing more thinning and more prescribed burning and really get the fuel problem under control. And we know they want to do that, but they've been so short of resources that they keep falling behind where they would really like to be.
A lot of the excitement during wildfire season is always during the fire. And then the media, we tend to lose interest once the fire is out. What tends to happen right after the fire is out?
This is such an interesting question, Lorraine. And this is where people like me enter the picture. When the fire goes out, the TV cameras go home, the firefighters go home, and you have what looks like kind of a smoky mess. But it's actually an ecosystem that is now starting a healing process. A lot of plants have been killed, the soils have been damaged. When water falls onto a hillside like that, instead of soaking into the ground and entering that hydrologic cycle, you can get massive runoff, sheet runoff, and erosion. So all the sediment and all the water ends up down in the stream channels. And it can take a long time for an ecosystem like that to put itself back together. And when I say a long time, we can't think in terms of our own lifetimes. Some ecosystems, like grasslands, come back from fire really quickly, like 6 to 12 months. They're back. They're ready to go. In fact, they're healthier than they were before the fire. But an old growth forest, such as we have on top of the Catalinas, where the trees are 200 to 500 years old, that's not going to stand itself back up in a year or two. That's going to take decades and possibly even longer, because if the climate is not suitable for the forest regrowing, and in particular for seedlings to turn into to trees again, then that system could take a very long time to heal.
The runoff that you're describing has been devastating to mountain ranges like the Chiricahuas, for example. What's the prognosis for the homes that are on the lower level there of the Catalinas?
What I can say at this point is we don't know what those possibilities are from this fire. Remember that here in the Southwest, our major fire season is right now, it's June. And what's going to happen next month, our heaviest, most torrential rains during the monsoon. It just happens that one happens right after the other. So this is where a lot of the agencies come in with what's called Burned Area Emergency Rehabilitation, or BARE. And they get out there as quickly as they can after the fire and try to put some structures in place that will slow down that erosion. And the Forest Service is setting up to do this right now, even though the forest is still engaged in fighting the fire. They're already moving into that post-fire rehab to try to prevent these big erosion episodes.